Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Tonight we're speaking with Alyce Grunt in conjunction with her Cerulean Collective Exhibition, her first, which is on view now through March 10th. And hello, Alyce.
Hey, Mike. Hi,
How
Tina.
are you? Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks also for all the work just put into hanging the show. A lot of guests commented to me. They really loved how the work was hung.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was really fun to hear. There was a few people commented there was like almost like a window effect um, that they were really interested in. So I know you asked me to speak briefly about like me and my background. I am from the Philadelphia area, Philadelphia proper, I should say. And I always did art from when I was little. I have a lot of memories of just loving going to art class, doing art at the kitchen table. I had a special art box, art, art, art. So I think that was probably just a way for my parents to also have some quiet in the house. So that was really accessible to have a lot of art supplies around. And then in high school, I had some really good art classes. And I think that really is where I began to become interested in painting and started to see some progress that was satisfying as a painter. Um, it was a long time ago, but that was a really kind of impactful time, I think. And I do teach high school art, and I think part of it has to do with those experiences from when I was younger. So you're kind of going through the show here and showing people some of the current work.
So it's a mixture of interior still life and combination interior, exterior, and landscape.
Yeah. And I do love painting all those different things, sort of for different reasons. But I do think kind of the unifying thing is the quality of the light. I'm just strongly attracted to light and shadows. I'm always telling my students, like, shadows are the gift for artists. And then they look at me like I'm very strange. But I do, I just really enjoy the light and shadow patterning in things. And it's just very compelling. So whether it's a small, intimate setup that's kind of close or an interior, um, I really like the quality of light, and I think everything in this show is done like with natural light. So while my students, I have them paint with setups with a spotlight, and I paint sometimes with spotlights. Lately, I'm trying or very interested in painting, just by the outdoor light. So this one was probably a little bit late in the afternoon, getting longer shadows and things.
So are you painting directly from these setups or scenes?
Yeah, everything I do is kind of from observation, maybe occasionally a memory, like because if I do have a figure, which I know there's not, I don't think there's figures in this show, but I actually like to kind of just paint how I see it, and then it forces me to really pay attention. So, like, if actually, my husband is in one of these paintings, and he was like digging in the yard, so I didn't want to make him stop, and I just was like, just kind of get the way I see it, and then it kind of prevents me from getting too detailed or like overworked. Obviously, still life objects aren't moving on me, so there is more of that risk, I guess, of like overworking something. But certainly with figures, I just like to kind of see what I'm able to do, I guess.
So do you work out the composition right on the canvas or do you draw it separately?
You know, I do really love, so okay, I'm very attracted to light and shadow, but I'm also really attracted to like the puzzle quality of like the shapes as they fit together. So I do use a viewfinder, and I'm talking like just two cardboard L's, nothing fancy. And then I kind of attach them proportional to the size I'm going to be working on. A lot of these are squares, so I have it set as a square. And I tell my students I call it like window shopping, but I really do spend a lot of time looking and trying to figure out how I want things to fit in that frame. I kind of think I'm a fast painter, but I'm slow to start and then slow to finish because then I look at it for a long time. But the actual paint kind of goes more quickly. But that beginning part, I'm really interested in like where things are at the edge and just the shapes. And I know they're representational paintings, but I feel like I'm thinking rather abstractly of just like positive, negative shape and stuff like that in the pieces. So regardless of the subject matter, I definitely, those two cardboard L's are really key for me to get started.
And so do you like draw it out with the
Oh,
brush? Or do you
yeah,
draw
I do.
it?
So what ends up happening, I love drawing with paint. And it's really satisfying, and you can with oil paint, it kind of can wipe off. So if it's not quite right, and then there's the smudged layer, and then the more, I draw on top of it. And a lot of times I love how it looks like as a drawn oil painting. It's kind of with the wiped out, and I might start off with um, like a raw sienna or something that's kind of light and muted. But I'll start adding ultramarine blue when I need to see the current lines like over top. And a lot of times I just like love that first part. I'm like, oh, I really love this. And I cannot stop. Like a lot of times I thought, oh, I should stop or do something, and it's like impossible. So for now, I mean, I'm not saying never, but I draw it out in paint, and then I just have to keep going.
So if you're working on the spot, you'll have to set up and take down in front of the motif
Oh,
repeatedly.
I have to. Okay, so luckily my family is trained. Like a couple of still lives can stay around. There's a little bit of a I don't want to call it a fight. My husband's getting really into growing seeds, from growing plants from seeds and everything, and they need a certain kind of light. It just
Mhm.
turned out the same kind of light I need for my paintings.
Uh,
So we're both eyeing these same like few tables. Like there's not a lot that gets this certain kind of light. So I do my stuff just stays out. I paint it, and when the painting's done, we just move it away.
I guess you'll be painting
I
seedlings.
know I was really thinking that. I was like, that's what's happening. You really might not be wrong. I actually started to think that that's a real possibility. Because he kept saying, he's like, he never asked me before. He's like, are you done? And I was like, not yet. And then I realized, oh my God, he wants this table. And then I was like, and it's a small table. It's not even that big. So when I do the setup. So other stuff that's like outside, yeah, I just paint it. And I mean the landscapes don't really move, obviously.
So in your statement, you mentioned that, you're attracted to a scene, then you paint it, then after the fact, upon reflection, that it reveals different meaning to you or why it attracted you in the first place. How does that work for you?
Well, sometimes it takes a while to realize it. I don't always maybe like I guess what I'm sort of saying is I don't start off like the theme that I'm going to explore in this painting, like the two chairs could almost suggest figures or people together, even though there's no people there. But it's not like I'm thinking when I start, I want to make a piece about the absence of people or the presence of people. But then as I do the work and then look at it later over time, like actually right now I'm just noticing something I never thought about, that there's a lot of these empty chairs in these scenes. And I don't maybe know right now what that means, but I suspect as I start looking through the work, it may, it may start to evoke some other meaning. There's pathways, there's trails, there's kind of spaces like looking through or beyond. And I guess it's more of the surprise that comes from it as opposed to like the predetermined, like this will be the theme in this piece. And so I sort of just trust that I'm attracted to something, if that makes sense. And then often I am surprised. Sometimes there'll be like more like heavy symbolism than I expected in something. And sometimes it's maybe more subtle. I don't know if I have a symbol to tell you about any of this work at the moment. Like I do have to think about it maybe because sometimes it does take a while and I'm really surprised when it happens.
Well, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
depends.
yeah,
Some,
absolutely.
it's usually, could be better if it's not obvious, but
Right.
it's hard to know when
Yeah, I
to
mean even
start.
this piece, like this one, this actually did have a figure in it. So in this foreground element, there's sort of this dried flower, these asters that my husband grew. And in the original painting, my son was like sitting up on that fence. And it was great when I originally did it, but it just wasn't quite him. And like I said, I don't use photos. And I was gonna start to be nagging him, like, can you sit up back on the railing again? And I just decided to take it out. Like I didn't need to have him in the painting, but these planters were on the deck and I put them in. And at the time that I painted it, the asters had kind of gone to seed. And I do think there is something about that. I think it's called Winter Interest, this piece. Um, and we do in our house, we think a lot about like what you're seeing beyond in the spring and summer, but like what you can also do to have those interesting textures and colors, like in the yard itself. And the dried flowers, like those are oak leaf hydrangeas behind that pine tree there on the left. Yeah, right. I'm like pointing, but Tina's obviously at the camera. Those are all things that we love in the winter. And I think, especially when you're like looking out, you start to love anything that is still providing interest in the winter. And so those were some of the things that I was thinking about when I did this painting. And then I was really pleasantly surprised, once I took my son out, that I love that like veiled effect of these asters in the front. And it kind of got me thinking like it would be interesting to paint more of these flowers in this other time of the year, when I do think there is still a beauty to them. It's just a different beauty. So that's maybe more to come.
Mhm.
And also how piece can change sometimes, like because of not using photos and stuff. And I just didn't, I don't know. I love painting my son, but in this particular one, I was like, I can let that go and make it be something else.
And this is the most recent one, yes?
So this was practically wet when I brought it to you. Yeah. And we had just had some snow. And I love to paint snow. I just enjoy it so much because I love to be outside. I try to paint outside, especially if there's snow. I just love the air, the light, everything. And there's no mosquitoes. So I was really excited to go out and do this. And we've had a few bouts of snow this winter, so that's been great. And it just kind of, those just sort of flow. So I'm able to like look through the viewfinder and I can just see it. And like I feel like the way it'll, and I just sort of put it on there. This one, okay, so this is a snow painting that took longer. It's a more complicated painting for a lot of reasons. It's bigger, it has architecture. And this was really a great opportunity. I don't often get to do more complicated paintings in the snow because we don't have a lot of snow, for one reason. But this one, there was like a really big storm. And so I got out there and was able to work over this. I tried to prioritize all the parts with snow first and then the architecture. I probably did the details in that last because I wasn't fighting the snow melting at that point as much. And similar to what we were talking about before, I framed it up with the viewfinder and then drew it on there with like, I think this one just straight blue. I like to draw with blue a lot. Until I was kind of happy with the drawing, and then I just started building up the paint.
So are there artists that you think about or inspire you?
But there's definitely artists that I'm very inspired by, and it's sort of hard to even pick. But there is a painter that I hadn't known about for a long time. I have his book right here, Elmer Schofield. Do you know that name?
Is he a Pennsylvania impressionist?
Yeah, he painted in Philadelphia. He painted in the Wissahickon a lot, and then he painted in England. And there was a show at Woodmere, like maybe already 10 years ago, approximately or so. And it was just amazing. And he painted in the winter a lot, so lots of snow. And I do love looking at his work, and seeing the show in person was really amazing. So it's also neat when there's a Philadelphia connection. So that is a painter that he just like uses a lot of thick paint and they feel very spontaneous, but I love his choice of color and composition. And just like he's like tackling this like, landscape. So that's a painter that I was thinking about. And then it's really funny. There is a painter I actually sort of stumbled upon, like sometimes you're looking at galleries and other artists. And she was a still life painter named Lynn Catula. I don't know if you know that name. I don't
No.
know. Yeah, you may not, but she actually painted more like kind of I don't want to say flat, very like simplified still life where like there might be an eggplant with just like two tones. And I loved how minimal she was able to do that. And I was thinking about her actually a lot when I did my still lifes a lot this summer. And mine still came out very dimensional, so I was really like looking at her work and loving a lot of what she did. And mine just come out through me, I guess, and it's different.
Uh-huh.
But I do love to look at other artists' work. And then, I really like Fairfield Porter. George Nick is another painter. I really like his work. Just off the top of my head. I mean, there's a lot. It's hard to obviously pick, but those were a few to mention.
So now we have a group of your landscapes. It's interesting because they tend not to be like long vistas, but you're right in the middle of of it. You know, it's close up, you're surrounded.
Yeah, well, it's so funny you said the word surrounded. I almost had thought about calling the show like surrounded, like literally, and I wasn't sure if that sounded a little, I don't know, like you're surrounded. But yes, that was this like feeling of like literally like almost being in these rooms almost, I guess, like these enclosed spaces, but of nature. Um, I really love that. It's not that and also maybe it might just be also a practicality measure. Like I am close to places where there's creeks and it's very a lot of trees, so it's not these big vistas with lots of depth. So, but I do also like that. Like I enjoy those feeling of like being engulfed in that space. A lot of like the foreground trees, like a limb might be coming down, and I really do like that. Um,
When they become very abstract in a way, you know, at first you're like thrown right into it and the viewer has to sort it out.
Mhm. You know, this one, it's funny. It's in a place that doesn't exist anymore. It was like a bridge, and now that bridge is gone. And it really does almost seem like you could be in the water because there just happened to be this little bridge that I was able to work on, kind of near a busy road actually. But now that they took out the bridge and it's just not even a spot anymore. It's just in the air.
Mm.
So I'm glad I got to do that painting when I did it because it would have been a good spot to go back to. This piece is actually in New Hampshire, but sort of the same idea. I do love that that's being surrounded by the woods, especially the water is a little different up there. It's clearer, more clear, um, but it's very inspiring. A lot of pine needles kind of give that pinkish orange or coral hue to the ground, and again, there's like that puzzle aspect for me. You know how like just to fit them together and the blotches of color. Um, kind of helped me set it up, I think.
When you have to do a lot of visual editing, uh, you know, to abbreviate your forms and boil
Yeah,
them into essentials.
yeah, that's true. And it's a very challenging thing to do. It sounds as you describe it, it sounds very straightforward. And then when
Yeah,
you're in the tangle of it, it's yeah.
right.
But I just enjoy, I think because I enjoy being outside so much, it's a way I like to spend my time outside is like trying to untangle that.
When I think, you know, working directly on the spot under, you know, certain conditions, you know, forces you to do that. You know, you don't have the luxury of lingering.
Well, you know what? Actually, a former student who did come to my opening, it was so great to see her. She made some comment once about like, you just don't have a lot of time for navel gazing. And she's so
Right.
great. It's such a great way to put it. So I don't know if I could say it better, but I think she was right. And so for me, this kind of does put a little bit of a forced pressure. Um, and so the small ones, this one I probably did in like one shot in terms of like setting it up and but then I probably looked at it for a while and then like made like one branch different.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. So
I,
you
and I, yeah, go ahead.
so you do like adjust in back in the studio?
I'm right. So what will happen is, again, I don't have like a photo reference, but I'll look at it for a long time. And a lot of times I will notice I've made like an X or some like thing, and it may have been how it was, but it will drive me crazy back in the studio. Um, there was one time I made a painting, and literally the cast shadows on the sidewalk was a smiley face. It was like a huge,
Ah.
oh my God, how did I not see that when I was out there? When I'm out there, so much is happening. I'm just so much I'm processing. So some of that I just can't see until I'm back in like a quiet, a calmer setting and the painting is isolated. So that's what I mean about then there's this looking time at the end. And so I like to have like a kind of I try to like not overwork things when I'm out there, but then I might look for the longest time and like take off one branch after hours of looking or move something because I realized there's like a weird way that the shadows just or two branches just crossed and it made a weird tangent or um
Well,
you know
yes, you're moving from, you know, the observable world to the painting world, and you have to adjust accordingly.
yeah, and I think especially in a tangle like a space like this, that's a place where it's really easy for me to if I'm really painting like a lot of stuff um not even realize that inadvertently I've made like, a giant smiley face shadow or whatever it may be. I still can picture that one. It was really funny. And so, like I said, and a lot of times, like I turn the painting upside down. That's a great way to see things with fresh eyes, and then you look at it in a mirror. So
Yeah,
besides
backwards.
all that stuff, it just helps because like you get used to seeing it and you kind of don't realize. And so either that or you need a lot of time to pass. For me, I guess I should say either I need to like do those kinds of techniques and or have time pass and look at it with like fresh eyes. And then right away I'll be like, oh my God, how did I not see? There's a
Right. Well, I mean, there's the intensity of the painting moment,
Mhm.
then, the long reflection after the fact.
Right, right. Yeah. So what is it? When it doesn't annoy me anymore, it's done, I guess.
Well, you sort of have some distance, like
Yeah,
a more objective.
yeah. So yeah, so yeah, sometimes I will do like a something, but I don't try to do like big sections or something not on the spot because I am trying to relate it to the lighting and everything that I'm experiencing.
So the moment itself seems important to you, like being in the space at the time.
Well, it's funny, yes. And then I realized like for the larger ones, especially that snow one that Tina was just on, I go back. So some of them, or like this big one that she's coming up on, multiple. This one took a really, many, 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 many days. So some of them it's like that spontaneous moment, that one shot, but others I realize it's like a sum of moments, like many,
Right.
many days.
Mm.
Um, and so it almost is like capturing that essence of time passing. Um, that big yard one, like even some flowers like came and went, and so I probably have like an anachronism of flowers. Can you say that? There's anachronistic flowers. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I would
Mhm.
probably know, but I probably have like two things blooming that wouldn't concurrently be blooming in there. I couldn't, resist because I was like, well, I'm still at it. This
Right.
painting is taking me a long time. I'm going to add those other flowers. I made it to their season, so they can go
That's
in.
your artistic license.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you paint for long enough, the next thing will bloom.
Well, it's a wonderful show, Alice. Congratulations.
Well, I do want to thank you guys again so much. And there's groupings like friends were like, look, it's like a window looking to the outside. And everyone was really taken by the way the work looked hung. So thank you for making it look so beautiful. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, you're welcome. We enjoyed the installation for sure.
But yeah, it's its own kind of puzzle to sort out
Yeah.
for sure. Tina,
And
thank you so much.
and the show is up through March 10th, so we hope people can come down and see it. And thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. And thanks for everyone's interest. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and take care.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.